I think we can hit. I'm going to try and be more professional today. Are we good to go?
Yes, we are.
Pella, the Democratic Alliance is in town, so we must behave. You know, with the other political parties, we can crack jokes.
And then what makes you think you can't?
Ntate Msimanga, thank you so much for joining us on the Penuel show. Just to start off, I'd just like to lay a complaint officially on why you didn't bring us all chicken to enjoy. This is our second meeting, our first official. A couple of years ago, there was some gathering, I think, of young people hosted by a gentleman called Elvis. I think Slow Motion was there as well.
Yeah.
It was very close to Vilakazi Street and Mamini Matikizela's home.
Yeah.
And you came to speak as the headline there. And since then, I've been watching your career with great interest. And I'm going to do something that I don't normally do here. I hope it's in your benefit. I normally like having conversations. Yeah. Where was home? How was growing up? We're very close to the election date of the 29th of May.
Sure.
I'm going to try my best to be as professional with an interview style as possible and just focus on the issues at hand so that we get them out of the way.
Yeah.
And then after that, hopefully, if you're still comfortable to engage us, then we can have a nice chillas.
Yeah.
For like 15, 20 minutes just to chat.
Well, I'm in your hands. Let's go for it.
I'm honored to have you here, sir. You are the official premier candidate for the DA. What does that mean to you?
Well, look, I mean, I've been in the DA for a very long time. I've grown in the DA. Look, we come from the ANC, and I'm not even scared to say it. I mean, my uncle was part of, the armed wing. Was very upset with me.
Armed wing,
yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want to mention the name, but anyway, you mentioned the name. So anyway, they come from there, and growing up in Ekasi, and having an opportunity to work, to start, going to school and work, and having traveled the world. I was like, you know what? I've been to developed countries. I've been to countries that fallen apart, and I always come home and I'm like, yeah. We're going the wrong way here. Sure. And I could see that happening, a long time ago. So, I got into the DA those years. And funny enough, I wasn't even looking to come into the DA, but I was looking for a home that will give me what I was looking for at that particular point in time, because the ANC had stopped listening back then already.
Correct.
So, I then went to an event. Tony Leon came to Atteridgeville, and I was Kokasi, so I decided, well, let me just go and listen to this man. A lot of confettis, a lot of balloons, coming in, and a lot of what was said resonated with me. But I was like, I was looking at people as our history dictates. People who education wasn't there, if I may say so. Literacy, low levels of literacy there. Whatever he was saying, because he was too technical in what he was saying. Yeah. I found that it missed a whole lot of people. I wrote to Tony, and I didn't even think that I was going to get an answer, and I did get an answer. So fast forward, I was asked to come in. I left the job, started working with the Democratic Alliance as a staff members, and then later on I became, a director in the party, and then worked my way. I was a councillor, being a member of the legislature, then being a mayor, and then also now being a member of the legislature again for the last 5 years. So, having campaigned also and knowing and understanding what needs to happen, not being tone deaf, understanding what needs to happen on the ground and how you need to package messages. I think the party saw that as a character that, or as a factor that could be used for us to then, be out there. But I said also that, I've always been passionate about really bringing the difference that I've wanted to always see, and not seeing our country go down the drain. And I think that's what pulled me, to do this. Sure. I mean, in 2019, we did this, and we didn't succeed. And at that time, I got a little bit disappointed, because I was thinking, but guys, do you see where this country is going? And do you think that we're going in the right direction? And if you're still saying we're not going in the right direction, but why are you voting the way you're voting?
Sure.
And I think the opportunity is presenting itself again. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing now. There have
been questions by political leaders and people on the ground asking, what is the role of the provincial segment? They feel like it's a waste. We've got national government, we've got local government. The provincial guys, we don't really know what they do. If you could maybe explain to an ordinary person, if you become premier of the province of Gauteng, what does that mean? What work do you do, etc.?
Well, Penuel, you see the work that the provincial government can do, and if you look at the United States as an example with different states, is that when you have power that is devolved from a national to a provincial level, there's a whole lot that you can do.
Okay.
And you can then actually then say the circumstances that we are sitting with and faced with at a provincial level will need that localized, and I'm saying localized at a provincial level, that localized intervention or approach versus, what will happen, in a different province. I'll give you an example. The way Bekele has been dealing with the South African Police Service, you can see for yourself where we are now, right now. I mean, we have lawlessness all over.
Crime keeps going up. Murder rates keep going up.
Yeah, murder rate keeps going up. Gangs here in Gauteng and in the Western Cape keeps going up. You having infrastructure that gets to be, vandalized and stolen on a massive scale, especially in these two provinces. And then you say, if we had power at a provincial level, what will we be able to do? We'll be able to then hire police at a provincial level to then also have special task teams to deal with, the kind of crimes that we're dealing with, as an example. So, as I always say that, the kind of crimes that are happening here will be different to the kind of crimes that are happening in Limpopo, to Mpumalanga, to, the Northwest. So that's what you get. Given the fact that you're also having a serious flow of people into the province, Gauteng is getting close on 1,000 people coming into the province, almost on a monthly basis, coming to settle here.
1,000?
Here. Yeah.
Jeez, okay.
Coming to settle and live here.
Sure.
Now you need to then say you can't have a blanket approach in terms of how you then deal with issues of accommodation, how you deal with issues of safety and security, how you deal with the economy. I mean, we now need to then say at a provincial level, how do we deal with all these things? And that's where the provincial government should be playing a very pivotal role in terms of making sure that all these things that needs to happen within different municipalities are coordinated at a provincial level. And obviously reports can then go to the national government. In my mind, national government should be only concerned with a few things. One of them should be legislation, or not even legislation, the constitution, because legislation, you can actually devolve some of these things to the provincial level. Second thing is that should be concerned about your borders. So, because in my mind, we should be talking to the protection, and borders talking to also issues of defense, issues of international relations. That's what the national government should be concerned about. When it comes to education, when it comes to issues of, obviously the national government can talk to the standards and all of that, but at a provincial level, you can then do what needs to be done at that level. Then you can look at the issue of justice, which then can sit at a national level, but also powers somehow in terms of bylaws and all of that being at a provincial and also at a municipal level. So I think there are certain things, a whole lot of things that could actually then belong in provinces. And I do believe that if that was the case, provinces will be run much more better than what we're having right now, where things are so centralized that everything has to now really be channeled upstairs.
So you're speaking very much about the ideal situation and what could be. Would you agree that that's currently not the case, and currently provinces don't have much power?
Well, they don't. Bekele is now, as an example, deciding how many police to hire, where they should go, what they should do, instead of saying what are provinces needing, as an example. You have hospitals that are built, but the control thereof, yes, some of it might be in a provincial level. But what we want is to then devolve power so that we are able to say, from a provincial perspective, we want to hire CEOs of hospitals so that we can have hospitals run a whole lot more efficiently than what is happening. You also want to then ensure that you're able to have what I call an infrastructure master plan, a provincial infrastructure master plan. Look at a province like Gauteng. You can now not even make a distinction of where Johannesburg starts, where Pretoria ends. Where Ekurhuleni starts, where Johannesburg ends, and so on and so forth. But then we still have silo planning and silo, rollout of infrastructure, whether you're talking water, whether you're talking electricity, whether you're talking roads. What we should be doing is to then say, how do we build an integrated infrastructure master plan? The water that is drunk in Tshwane, or the water that is used in Pretoria, is actually coming from the Vaal, coming through the Vaal, Meaten, and all of that into Ekurhuleni, from Ekurhuleni into Pretoria. But what are we doing in terms of ensuring that our infrastructure, whether it's underground or that which you can see, is actually integrated in terms of what municipality A and municipality B is doing, that it needs to be seamless, that it needs to flow, that you have a situation where electricity plants, like what we have now and what we want to then do in Pretoria West. There's the old Pretoria West electricity generating plant there. You have the Rooival, you have Kelvin, which is in Kempton Park. You have also in Al Road. Those that can actually be used to then ensure that we reduce the dependency of Eskom in all our municipalities, because you're generating an additional 2,000 megawatts of electricity here in the whole province. So I am saying that there is so much value in introducing a level of an integration within the province, especially one like Gauteng. I mean, geographically, we're the smallest province.
Correct.
But when you're looking at population, when you're looking at wealth that is here, I mean, Gauteng has got ratio of cars to people is 3-1 if you were to start thinking about it. So you start then saying, how do we then make sure that people and goods move? We are a logistics hub in South Africa. You have the international airport, and you have BMW, Nissan, Ford, amongst others. How do we then get goods and services, flowing? We now need to then also get power from national perspective to the provincial level, so that we are able to look at things like trains. How do we get trains in Gauteng, moving? Because right now, I mean, I used to know what time it is in the morning before I even lifted my head from the pillow, because 4:15 the first train will hit Atteridgeville, and you could tell, and then you would know the 7th train, I need to get up because it's time to then get ready for school. Right now that is gone. There are people now who have to spend three quarters of their salary on transport, leaving Hammanskraal to go to work in Centurion, having to leave at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, so that they're able to, catch bus and taxis and this and that and that, so many transport modes to be able to then get to a place of work.
Sure.
And that is not also integrated, because this one is taking cash, that one is using, a weekly ticket or a monthly ticket. So all these things, if we are to start thinking about it, if we want to give people a better quality of life, we need to then say, how do we integrate all of that at a provincial level, taking into consideration the factors and the dynamics that are there of Gauteng, and then say, how do we then plan and execute?
This is what you'd like. And is this decision, if you become premier, is this something you could push, or is it something that would need to come top down, where, let's say, the DA fights for it at national and then it comes down?
Look, I think this is something that can be done. First of all, we can petition,
from the province
upward.
Okay.
You can petition the minister and the presidency.
Okay.
For instance, you can petition the minister of safety and security. You can petition Pravin Gordhan in terms of the entities as an example, to then say, are we able to then, topic for another day. But you can then say, are we able to then have a conversation? Because there's a business case to be made. This infrastructure is not going to be fixed. If you go to Orlando right now, there's a train track that used to transport people from Orlando all the way to the Johannesburg CBD, and people were able to then connect from Johannesburg CBD. They could go anywhere into Africa. Think about it. Yeah. They could go anywhere into Africa. You could catch a taxi literally from Johannesburg to Maputo. You could catch not a taxi, but a train from Johannesburg to Maputo. You could catch a train from Johannesburg to the Eastern Cape to the Western Cape.
You're making me sad.
Right now, listening. You cannot even catch a train to Vanderbijl Park, which is in the same province.
You're making me so sad. From an ideal perspective, which I'm not sure how much autonomy you want. So ultimate autonomy at a provincial level is almost, it's almost like an independent Cape. It's almost, we will do everything ourselves, and then where we are now. What percentage from 100% where we're almost like a sovereign province would you like as the DA, 100% being full autonomy. And how much percent do you think we have currently?
Yeah.
And this is not just for Gauteng, but all the provinces in the country.
Look, I think all of them are treated the same way.
Sure.
Besides the fact that Western Cape and KZN have their own constitutions, by the way, provincial constitutions.
So they are closer to 100 than other provinces.
And it's something that is by design that comes back years and years.
Okay.
So it's not something that just came up now, right? But in terms of if you're looking at your financial management systems and the acts that are there, you find that all these things are actually then hanging somewhere.
Sure.
So money needs to come from national treasury into the provincial treasuries, and then can then be dispersed into projects and into programs, which is something that, in terms of playing an oversight, you can still do to then say, look, I will make money available and I will play an oversight in terms of what you do.
Yeah.
So that if there are standards, you are able to then keep up with the standards, right? The problem is that now, Penuel, is that you're having so much that can be done, but is not being done because now we're looking at a blanket approach or one size fits all.
For all the provinces.
For all the provinces. Sure. That's where the problem is. You're having a strategy by the minister that says, if I am doing it here, I need to do it there, I need to do it there. But whereas we need to then say, what are the unique features of each province? Limpopo should actually be a very big agricultural hub, including processing plant.
You're right. It's very wealthy from that perspective.
Gauteng is a center that, as I said, is a logistics hub, but is also a financial hub.
Correct.
Right. You can look at that. The Free State is
a lot of our banks, a lot of our insurance companies are all headquartered here, just for people to understand.
Yeah, they're here. Right?
The JSE, etc.
Now, you can have the greatest amount of tourism. I was in Dubai, and my heart.
Hey, you were in Dubai, nobody. Doing what?
No. Work. We went.
No, we also go to Dubai for work.
No. I'll tell you.
I'm kidding, Solly. I'm sorry.
No, it's
very
fine.
Inappropriate jokes.
We went to work because we do what we call field studies. So you go and look at where things work and how they work and why they work.
That is very important.
One of the things that really made me so sad is that I looked at Dubai's progression.
Yeah.
And I look at Durban's regression.
Correct.
And I said...
Durban is heartbreaking.
I stood in front of the palm. In Dubai, they have that thing called the palm.
Oh, no, I was also in Dubai in December.
Yeah, so I
for work.
I stood in front of the palm.
Yeah.
And I said, this could have been Durban.
Correct.
This could have been Durban. We have a perfect weather system here, better than what, Dubai is, as an example.
You're right.
At some point, we had the best in terms of people wanting to come into Africa. They were looking at South Africa. They were looking at South Africa and its provinces as the gateway into Africa. Whether you talk in tourism, people will fly all the way from Europe and whatever, and they will fly here and then go into Africa.
I can't believe Dubai and Durban almost sound similar, even in name and spelling.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But think about it. What did we do? Our infrastructure started falling apart. Right now, people cannot even drink water there. People have died because of the floods. And, yes, it's natural disasters, but some of these things are things that could have been prevented had we taken care.
There are certain parts of the damage that could have been prevented with the right type of work.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but we didn't do that, right? Right now, you are going to have people that should be benefiting out of a tourism sector of the economy in KZN that are not going to be benefiting because now people are like, why should I fly there?
Sure.
You land in OR Tambo as an example. Now, Dubai, OR Tambo is there, has been there for over 100 years. Dubai airport is something that is new. Yes, people will argue, there's oil money, there's this, there's that, but there was also vision and foresight. Anybody who wanted to fly anywhere into Africa will come and land here first. And then we'll be able to then catch
We were the gateway to Africa.
Yeah. What did Dubai do? They built a whole city. They built a whole city around an airport. And they make sure that you wanting to go anywhere in the world have to go to them first. Dubai. And you spend not less than 2 hours there. And those 2 hours that you spend, you can buy anything from a car to property, to clothing, to perfumes, to whatever. You are spending money. You are going to spend money, right? When was the last time you were at OR Tambo?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Last week.
What does it look like?
Oh, no.
Does it look like a place you want to spend 2 hours
compared
in or
to,
3 hours?
Is it DXB, DBX? I always mess it up. Whatever the Dubai.
Yeah, DBX.
Dubai is special, man. And everything entering the country, getting out, moving around is seamless. Seamless, very inviting. Yeah, it feels like you're in a place that you want to be at.
Now,
at OR Tambo, you actually, it's almost feeling like a park station now, but, where you want to get in and get out.
You go in there, you have ceilings that are falling apart. And what message are we sending out?
What's this, OR Tambo?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't know. I can't verify that.
No, I'm telling you. I'm telling you because I used it about, when was it? The Easter weekend, I used it. So that was 3 weeks ago. I used that. I can tell you, what is happening there.
Yeah.
You now need to then say, are we serious about turning the image and the economic projection of South Africa?
Yeah.
So the image I'm talking about, what do people see when they get here?
Yeah, that's important.
You have the biggest concentration of embassies. So you have the international eyes here in Gauteng. The next biggest one is New York. So the US in New York, or in Washington, sorry. That's when you have the biggest concentration of embassies and high commissions. The second one is here.
Are you serious?
Yeah. It's here.
Like Pretoria, Waterkloof is the second biggest concentration of
outside of
Washington.
the US. Yeah.
Jeez, I didn't know that.
We have that as the biggest. Here.
Okay.
Now, where do people land? What do they see? Is it inviting for them to then say, we want to go into South Africa and we want to then not only, come in and play here, but we also want to come and invest here or bring in people to come and invest here. That's what we now need to be talking to then say, where are these opportunities? Where did we drop the ball? And are we really having a plan to then get these things going?
Sure.
Emirates, when it started, they said, okay, we'll get the Emirates and we'll make sure the business model. I was listening to the CEO of Emirates actually saying this. The whole idea was to build a city within a city. So you build the airport and you make sure that anybody who's going anywhere flies there. I mean, I was surprised. There was a time I was flying to Morocco. Morocco is in Africa, well, there at the edge of it. But we had to fly to Dubai in order to then come back to Africa.
There's a gentleman, Zimasa Vabaza Mustafa, who spoke about the fact that when you want to travel outside of Africa, generally, depending on where you're going, it's cheaper to leave Africa first.
Yeah, and then come back.
And then come back.
Yeah.
Which is very, very sad.
So that's what you could have done, and that's what we should have done.
Yeah.
Guess who's now overtaking us in that space?
I can guess. If I were to guess, when I think of two airports, not sure about Egypt, but Ethiopia and Kenya. Ethiopia and Kenya becoming the go-to place if you want to travel anywhere in Africa.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now Ethiopia is overtaking us, right? We had over 114 planes.
Oh, I know where this is going.
At some point.
Your boy Praveen that you mentioned earlier. Please carry on.
No. You see, where I'm trying to say is that, Penuel, is that you...
What happened to the planes? We're 114,
117.
And now?
We only have 9.
Shout out to Praveen. Sell them, boy.
No, it's not an issue of selling them. It's an issue of also having is also an issue of having international contracts, because most of these airlines do that.
Yeah.
You have a long-term contract with your two your Boeing and your Airbus, right? Yeah. So and you go into a long-term contract. You don't want to buy these things. You want them leased for a very long time.
It's more economical.
Then after a while you return them. They give you a new fleet, or they refurbish your fleet as you go. Now, we used to go all over the world. We were part of the formation of the Star Alliance. So I'm trying to.
And people loved SAA, by the way. They actually said it was one of their favorite airlines.
You know what I found very sad is if you read SAA's magazine, I think it was a month or two ago when they were celebrating 100 years or something like that of flying. They mention it to then say they were the second best rated airline in the world.
In the world. Their
And
seat space, the food.
everything.
Jeez.
Because you could give people a package. There was value. So this is where I was going with this. South Africa needs to create value for anybody that they want to attract, because we are no longer seen as just as the gateway into Africa. There are people who are fighting us for that space. Namibia right now is actually investing in fixing its harbor, so that all these things that you see coming through Durban and Cape Town, now they want to do it in Namibia.
Via Namibia. I know a lot of our ships that used to come here are now stopping in Mozambique.
Yes, they're going through Mozambique, and Namibia is also investing. So I am saying, as a country, we now need to then say, how do we create value? How do you create value that people will see you and then say how, and then say, we want to come back to you, or we want to come to you to go to the rest of Africa. But we've lost that. It's not completely gone, but we have lost that touch. We have lost that. You used to travel with a South African passport. Everybody, everywhere else you'll go, you'll be revered. Right now,
it's gold.
Well, even Nigerians don't want it anymore.
How?
But story for another day.
Yeah, Nigerians are Tshwane. I know Dubai, last I checked, doesn't let Nigerians in currently. I think it's Dubai or somewhere in the Middle East.
Yeah. So we need to then say, how do we build a value for investors to come in? Because Cyril said it, and this is one thing that I agree
Honorable
with him.
President Cyril Ramaphosa.
No, he said it as an ANC person.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
So I would.
Cyril said.
Yeah, he said it's not the job of government. It's not the job of his government to create jobs. It's the job of the private sector to come and invest. No, let me tell you where I agree. You as government don't create jobs. You create an environment in which jobs can be created by the private sector. How you do it? You invest in a number of things. You invest in your infrastructure, electricity, water, roads. Secondly, you invest in technology. Thirdly, you invest in your biggest resource, your human capital. But lastly, you invest in safety and security of your goods and your people. Tell me of these things that I've mentioned, which one has been done?
I want to take a step back. I don't know if you had a point. I don't want you to lose your point. You can finish it, because I want to go back.
Yeah. No, that's why I'm saying, to then say, he said, it's not the job of government, and which we agree, right? You're
triggering me again. I was trying to go back. You're bringing me back.
But the point I'm making here is this, that it is the job of government to create an environment, which in this point in time, they haven't been able to. December, we have lost so much revenue because there were ships upon ships upon ships that were in Durban that couldn't come in. The retail sector was saying, we have ordered so much that needs to come in so that we're able to then do these things. We were not able to then do it. In the last quarter, we have lost 203,000 permanent jobs. Go talk to CEOs of companies that are closing down or that are scaling down. Fact of the matter is that you are not able to then provide a guarantee, or you're not able to give guarantee in terms of the provision of electricity. Now in Gauteng, we begin to struggle with water, as an example. NAMPEC was saying to us, they're struggling now because they cannot get a continuous supply of water, which they need, for their product. You having
NAMPAC manufactures paper. Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe paper products as well.
Yeah. So they need a whole
lot of water,
right? So they're saying, well, look, we're struggling right now. I sat and met with a farmer who has said to me, I've had to throw over 100,000 liters of milk away because I couldn't sustain running a generator. My generator packed up and there was no electricity. What happens? He's now going to let go of his employees. He's going to close down. We are now importing toothpicks. Do you want me to go further?
I'm trying to conduct an interview here. And you're triggering me to raise some of my thoughts. So there's a conspiracy theory that I want to raise, but maybe not now. I just hope I remember. It has to do with what you're saying about the destruction of our infrastructure, the issue with the load shedding and the water. I have a conspiracy theory and why we've lost that very amazing title of being the gateway to Africa. I think I stand to be corrected, but I think around the time President Cyril Ramaphosa was speaking about how the government doesn't create jobs, it's the private sector. I think one of his farms was letting go of some of its workers, which I found very ironic. And at the same time, you start thinking about the fact that...
Was it before the million in the mattresses or after that? Or topic for another day?
I don't know what you're talking about. The guy was cleared.
Okay.
in the sofas. Government is the greatest employer, the biggest employer in the country. I think last I checked, maybe it was a few years ago, 1.3 million jobs were just under government. And just recently I saw close to 38,000 government employees earn over R1 million per annum.
Yeah.
Anyways, I didn't want to speak about that.
But can I
Go for it.
Can I respond to that?
I won't be able to make my points.
Eskom used to be employing something like 6,000. I can't remember the number, but it was around 6,000 or less.
Yeah.
And it was able to then produce what South Africa is now producing half of. But now the number of employees has more than 3 times.
I think the SAPC is also got a huge workforce as well.
Yeah, but what is it producing? So,
and they always bailed out as well, the SAPC.
Yeah. I think what we now needed to do is to understand that you need to run these entities as businesses. As much as you might not be making profit out of them, but you need to run them as entities. Let's face it, that's how they used to be run even during apartheid days. And
are you saying bring back apartheid?
No. I'll never say that.
I know.
Never say that.
Just clearing
There's one thing I appreciated about Nelson Mandela, is that when he came in, he understood that there was value in learning from what was.
Sure.
And coming up with it and saying, let's then build on this. Thabo Mbeki carried on with it. If you look at the economic,
growth
the economic growth where we were, we then followed the other ones. Then followed everybody. It was like, no, let's destroy everything.
How you also believe in 9 wasted years?
No, well, it's now forever. From look, it started. To be quite honest with you, it started towards the end of Thabo Mbeki's era. So I would say, in his second term, some of these things started showing up at that time, and then it just accelerated from Zuma's time, and then now I think we are just now on a descent with Ramaphosa. But
so there was no new dawn. It was the dusk.
It was
and the nighttime.
It was just glycerine, over, umntwana mbashile bangamlashana. We needed to make sure siwasha lo mntwana lona and get lo mntwana lo the kind of medication that this child needs.
Sure.
And then we could then talk about, how do we make this child shine?
So Cyril took a dirty, sick child and just glycerine.
Yeah.
And now you can see, the child is not getting better.
And this is why people who say that, the ANC will self-correct, I said they will not. Because everybody who comes after that is just going to continue with what is, right? And Kgalema Motlanthe has said it. These guys only issue out work or contracts or tenders because a comrade has to benefit, not because there's work and something good that needs to be done.
Sure.
What we need to then go back to is to then say where did we want to go? What did we have in place? How do we then get back there? And you start from there to then say, at some point, we had one of the most resilient economies. Even when the world was crashing, South Africa was standing. We didn't have, the crashes that the kinds of the US experienced. Yes, there might have been some knocks that we would have felt from time to time, but we never really, crashed with the rest of the world. We had an education system. Yes, you look at what the apartheid government did was that it would limit what you and me could do. But it made sure that you and me could read for meaning. It made sure that there was an option, if I couldn't read and write for meaning, that there was also a technical school somewhere that you could be taken to. There were inspectors that were able to then pick these things up way in advance. I remember, I was one of those learners in school, that used to come, need and do recitations and all of that. And then because you had inspectors that were coming in, we let go of that. Fast forward, we're sitting now with an issue, and sorry, I'm just going here and there, but I want to give you a number.
No, please get it all out. We're here for you.
I want to give you a number of examples. So, Thera Lokota was a minister of defense.
Oh, Musiwa.
Yes.
Yes.
Decided, I don't know what informed that, but they decided then to remove the South African Defense Force from our borders. And then there were all these small private companies that were, put
You're saying
up
it was under Terra Lekota's leadership?
It was.
That
during
SANDF was removed from the borders?
It was. It was.
He went on to found COPE, which is kind of...
Yeah, but it was then while he was
well
still a minister
under the
at the
ANC.
time. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what informed that. Because right now, you're talking about porous borders. You're having people in South Africa that are now scratching on just a sore, but they don't look at the cause.
Okay.
You are now fighting people who are already here. What you should be saying is, what did the South African government do to protect these borders and to control who is coming in? Try going now to Botswana. You get to the border there. What are you doing here? How long are you going to be here? Why are you going to be staying? Is the telephone number of where you're going? How many people do we have here that are undocumented right now?
A lot. The numbers vary depending on who you're asking.
We used to have something called Lindela towards Limpopo there. That used to be, we used to have buses carrying people that came into the country legally, taking them to Lindela, from Lindela back, and then
deporting.
Yeah.
Oh, mass deportation.
That. No, that used to happen, but there was security around the border, so you could have control. Right now, people are saying, hey, we'll deport them. And then what? Because I promise you, you're going to get
back.
people. Tomorrow, they're going to be coming back. So that's why I'm saying, when people come and talk and, they come and make all this, call it nice sound bites. Nobody.
Why are you not calling them out? I know the two men you're talking about.
But nobody is really questioning.
I can't say them.
Nah, well, it's fine. You know who they are. Your viewers
know
who
it's
they are.
Action SA and the PA. Mabahambe, Gaten and Hammanskraal.
But the question is, have you heard them talking about then what happens
the
after
solution
that?
after you've deported? Sure.
Because I'm saying the solution doesn't start with you fighting people.
Someone said they'll get Zimbabwe to build borders like Trump.
Yeah, maybe that came from Herman Mashaba, possibly. But we are saying you need to then look at your border infrastructure first of all. This thing of border management control, it's a fuss, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Because
you have these guys concentrated at the border post, only at the gate.
Sure, you're right.
People are now using, the river systems down the road.
In places like Lesotho, they literally walk across into the Eastern Cape, Abosterkspruit.
There you go. And then find their way into Gauteng and into the rest of the country. So you now need to then say, are we able to then introduce the military system? Because I live close to the military base here. I can tell you right now, our guys go there one day and see. We are paying for our soldiers to be there, just to be there around the Waterkloof, Valhalla area there. There's not much that is being done.
They're chilling, watching podcasts.
Go and see. And you tell me. The only time I get to see military guys working is those that, there's two entrances into Valhalla. And one is going towards Lodium, the other one is going towards the old ISCO industrial area. You see those posts. That's when you will see the military, and you see only the military police.
Sure.
Or you see them during shows when there's the parading and all of that, or when there's the State of the Nation address, But I'm saying there's so much that we could be doing.
Sure.
We could actually then even be getting more of our young people doing our gap years into the military. Get them to helping with patrol, get them into skills so that they're able to then also start helping with some of the artisan work that is needed in government. That used to happen. Yeah. That is gone. So the point I'm making is that, you have people that are making noise about a whole lot of things, but they are just talking to, they're making sound bites. They're not talking to the real issue or providing a tangible solution that will actually have a long-term impact. Mabahambe, yes, it's now a slogan.
Mabahambe!
And then what?
I remember Gaten jumping up and down on stage.
And then what? Because I promise you, you're going to have people that literally want you to catch them. Because now they have to take something home.
Sure.
Free
ride.
It's free ride. They
and
go
they'll
home
come back.
And then the next day they're back in the bus or they're back somewhere
right.
And then they're jumping.
You're very right.
And then thirdly, you have somebody who makes a very regular statement and say, come into the country even if you come on the back of a crocodile or whatever else.
Soli, why don't you mention the people's names though? That was Sillo. Julius Malema saying they must find creative ways to come in.
And he says, no, people in Europe, can move freely and all of that. But what he fails to understand and what he fails to, to tell people is that Europe has built, or European countries have built economies that are able to then sustain that you don't have to have an influx of people into one area because of economic migration, right? You don't have that here.
Yeah.
You have a situation where people are economic migrants. They're flooding into an area because it's hardship where they come from. There's no flow of goods and services into where they're coming from. So that is not going to help you. So that's why I'm saying, making all these noises and then making this I want to call them just sound bites, without really providing tangible solution and explaining your thought process in terms of how did you get there? Did you do a research in terms of how certain countries that you want to do comparison with ended up where they are? And that's for me, something that is going to lead us into trouble. But anyway.
Step back. Hey, that is all can get us going. I had a question and then I've got a follow-up question.
Yeah.
I don't think you answered my question. It was from an autonomy perspective.
Oh, yes.
If you were to run the province of Gauteng, how far close to 100% would you like to get? And where do you think we are currently?
All right.
Because 0% means what I was saying, where the province has no power and they're just ceremonial. National government does their thing, the local governments do their thing, but province is just there for show. Where are we now? Where would you like us to be?
Look, I don't think that South Africa should have sort of an call it 100% autonomous provinces. It's not going to work, right? And then you cannot have also 100% power centralized at a national level.
Okay.
I'm not too sure. I can't give you a number, but I can give you what I think provinces should be able to then have control over. So I can give you like I think the police, safety and security.
So let's say, for example, I'm trying to make it simple for people that will be listening. Maybe a 50-50, but with a focus on core things.
Yeah.
Like police, maybe education, health.
I would say police, I would say health, I would say
education.
I would say education, I think. Now, national can set the standards.
Sure.
But province can actually then decide.
Because your province might have a different economic mix.
There you go.
So there's a focus on maybe mining based on where you are, or agriculture.
Exactly. You need to then say what kind of economy you want to drive in this area.
Sure. And have that power as province.
Yes. Am I able to then not only incentivize the teaching of this, but also put so much investment into it that into developing that labor force that I want to then be able to then take advantage of this economic factor that I want to drive in.
Some level of economic.
I think that do. If you look at Gauteng as an example, it's contributing about 38% of South Africa's GDP.
Okay.
Right. If Gauteng was at some point when you were actually looking at your GDPs through Africa, it was South Africa, then it was Gauteng, and then it was Egypt, and then Nigeria. At some point, right now we have now even been overtaken by Nigeria, by Egypt. So now we're further down. So you now need to. Then
you talk about Gauteng.
Yes, Gauteng
not
is a
South
province.
Africa.
No, it was.
I know
Nigeria was.
Nigeria was leading; it's dropped down to fourth.
But at some point,
but you're saying Gauteng was second. After South Africa, and now it's maybe fourth, fifth,
right now, right? We've dropped. And we are now sitting with an economy that is still hanging on in spite of all the failures of government, but it's not creating jobs. So you're having an economy that is hanging on because people are already invested.
Yeah.
But they are not willing to invest further. So it's just now, let's keep it going.
Sure.
So you want to have a level of autonomy in that regard, but also being able to have, or national government being able to then play an oversight in terms of what you do. And one of the other things, I think provinces should take responsibility of their public transport infrastructure. Okay. And I've given you an example. The fact that we can and should, as a province, identify the moving of our goods and our people as a priority using rail, which is not now lying with the provincial government. But if you understand where you want to then take your economy, you then say, how do I then invest as a province in getting this thing? I want a rail that is able to run from Roslyn into Pretoria, from Pretoria all the way, to Maputo as an example.
Okay.
You know what that will do? It will lessen the time that BMW is able to get its products out. It will lessen, the time that Ford, Nissan is able to then get its product out. But it will also lessen the cost thereof, because they are saying if you are able to then get rail going, we have become more competitive. By the way, BMW South Africa is competing with BMW Mexico, BMW Brazil, and all of that. They're competing in terms of the products that they're able to then put up there.
Sure.
And if they win jobs, that means that BMW International is able to pump money into South Africa,
Sure.
which means that we're able to then get jobs, and we're able to then keep more, keep jobs as well.
Yeah.
Now you need to then say, from a government perspective, and remember what I was saying about US government investing in your infrastructure so that businesses are able to then prosper, is then you saying, understanding what these other entities want to then achieve, the private sector. Because once the private sector is achieving what needs to be, what they need to achieve, you will be able to then get more investment. Once you get more investment, you're able to then get more taxes. You're able to then get the economy going.
Sure.
The question, the other question that you asked me, Penuel, is this. You said, government is employing,
1.3 million at the time when I looked.
million. The question is, where is the tax? How strong is our tax base? How long will it be able to then sustain this? Because you cannot then say government is the provider. You need the private sector to provide the majority of the jobs, so that you're able to then collect much more tax and revenue. You're able to then grow,
Sure.
the economy in that particular way. At this point in time, we're doing what Greece has done. You're pumping more and more and more people into government. You're pumping, and Venezuela and so many others have done the same. And that has proven to be a recipe for disaster, because you end up then, glossing over a serious problem of government that is bankrupt, but it's looking like it's working. In certain countries, you go, to Zimbabwe, to Mozambique, the police will tell you straight, we don't get paid. So me stopping you here, me getting 200 rand out of you, is me getting paid.
They're not getting paid.
That's what they say.
Aibo.
That's what they say. But that's why I'm saying, remember there was a time they were even paying them with food vouchers or groceries.
In Zim.
Yeah.
Jeez, times are hard.
So that's why I'm saying, right, that's why I said to you right at the beginning, we are heading in a wrong direction. And I've seen these things, and this is what made me to end up being here and to try and do what I'm doing right now.
Sure. The policing, the logistics, public transport, education, healthcare. I'm guessing you mentioned you'd add electricity, maybe water as well for provincial power.
Yeah.
So maybe we'd give it 70%.
I would
Provincial?
say, remember, I still said, national government will still have to play
Oversight.
an oversight.
But let's say
over you.
70%.
I would say about 60.
60%.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you think we are currently?
Right now, I don't think we even at 20.
That's provincial power.
Yeah. I don't
Do you include KZN and the Western Cape?
Nah, there's still the fact
They're
that
also there under 20.
Yeah, the fact. Look, there it's more on the running of government from KZN, because Banamakosi, there's a king.
Sure.
There. So that has to be accommodated in how they do things.
Sure.
The Western Cape, I cannot give an explanation of how they ended up with the constitution there. But it is there, and it happened, by the way, before even the DA was in government. So
But you'd also give these two 20% or just under?
There are certain things that they were able to then start doing. One is that, for instance, in the Western Cape, they were able to then start bringing in laws around the your fresh produce markets and all of that, which was normally then a national competency.
It became provincial.
Yeah, so they were able to then get that authority, and it's something that you can actually then bring in terms of your bylaw and your laws that can actually then work within the provincial perspective. The issue about, as I said, safety and security is something that I'm very much passionate about, because right now you still don't have a concrete plan in terms of how we fight in crime. There's none. Go and ask what is the plan. All you get is Minister of Police and a commissioner giving you the stats.
Yeah.
Where is the Minister of Economic Development?
Is that still Mr. Ibrahim Patel?
Where are they when the states are given?
Okay.
Where is the Minister of Social Development?
Who's
Because
that currently? Is it Mamlindi Zulu?
I don't even know.
Okay.
That's yeah.
Or Pelagia Shafli, so
Yeah.
you never know.
But what I'm trying to get to is that you need to have a plan that talks to the crime, fighting crime and reducing criminal elements.
It's not just a police issue. You're right.
It's a social development issue. It is an economic issue.
Yeah.
You now need to then say, what are all of you bringing in?
Yeah.
Into this thing. What is education bringing into this thing?
Yeah.
All
Schools
of them.
get vandalized.
Yeah.
Drugs get sold to kids at school. That's all crime.
What are we doing?
Kids are stabbing each other.
There you go.
Yeah.
Kids are shooting teachers and
Correct.
principals.
Correct.
What are we doing in that space? And for me to then just get to be given stats of, we've reduced by 14%. But what does it really mean?
Yeah.
Are you really addressing the serious problem that we're sitting with? And this is why I'm saying at a provincial level, you should be able to then start doing that. But also you should be able to then start saying, what is then the plan for each province, as I said to you earlier on. And your plan should then, if you are able to then present a plan, that should be able to then also convince national government to release the power to you.
Sure.
To then say, if you can demonstrate that you can do this, then we can give you more power.
So where I was going with this, and it wasn't a trick question,
Yeah.
because I know now it's going to come out as if I was trapping you.
Yeah.
If we're going to say that provinces currently have less than 20% power, it means the people who have been saying that provincial power it's kind of hollow now. It's kind of true for now. But you're saying, look, it can be changed and it should be. Then the second one becomes, especially because you're representing the Democratic Alliance, they speak very much about the Western Cape and the work they're doing there. And if we are to agree, not me and you, but people to say provincial structures don't have that much power. One of the big counters that people normally have, it's normally black people. It's, if you look at the Cape Flats, Kukuletu, Kailicha, Elanga, Gwanyanga, Mitchell's Plain, Delft, Philippi, all these places are not in good shape. And the DA keeps shouting about the Western Cape, and then we have to imagine Camps Bay, Clifton, Landadno, Bishop's Cove, all these places where there's rich people. It's like you can't use rich people areas with private security and rich people to campaign when you're struggling to fix these other places. The sewage is running on the streets. There's heavy crime. Places like Gwanyanga is really, really bad. Can the DA celebrate the Western Cape, in your opinion, or how do you defend that? And I'm not doing a comparative with the ANC. I think we can agree the ANC has done a bad job, but are we not being sold a lie by the DA?
Not at all. I think you can go and look at all stats.
Sure.
And look at the kind of services and how fast we're able to then deliver those services. The DA is able to build a complete school in 69 days. Panyaza spends 430 million rand sanitizing schools here that are empty. The DA is able to build a clinic in Khayelitsha that is regarded as one of the best clinics or one of the best hospitals that you have right now. We're not running a perfect government. And the fact of the matter is that you are also now sitting with a problem where people are now migrating in droves from the Eastern Cape, from other areas. By the way,
has that not always been the case? Is that
no, but I'm saying in droves. So now it's and this again begins to then support the point that I was making about being able to to get more powers to the province. Because right now you're talking about human settlements. There is a grant that is coming from a national government that comes to provinces. So now you can say, no, we're not building houses or this and that and that. But what you should be asking is how much is actually allocated to this province, to these provinces, for them to then deal with what they need to deal with. Is the allocation also informed by the population flow? Are you still giving the same amount of money to the Eastern Cape, which is losing people to the Western Cape, the same as you have been giving And are you still giving the Western Cape the same amount of money?
Which doesn't make sense.
That's the point. And not only human settlement. I'm talking about hospitals and clinics as well. Because that's where money is coming from. You get this allocation that gets to be given to you. In Gauteng right now, you have people like, for instance, if you go to Steve Biko Hospital.
In Pretoria.
You have people that are coming from Brits on a daily basis. You have people that are coming from Mpumalanga, from Witbank, from Middleburg and all of that coming to seek, medical attention. You have people that are coming from Limpopo, for procedures and all of that. But there's not enough money that is then coming to the province to then say, we understand there are people who are coming from outside coming in to seek for this attention. And this is why we are saying that perhaps we now need to rethink how we have been funding, how we have been modeling, governance, and whether we actually want these provinces to then be able to then succeed. Back to the question that you asked about whether the Western Cape people are sold a dream. Now, things like Bishop's Court and Kemps Bay, the things that were there during apartheid days. What you should be asking is that what kind of maintenance have been taking place there versus the kind of maintenance that is taking place around some of these areas here. This is why you also have now an exodus of people who are well-to-do off from here going to invest there. Go ask yourself how many of the politicians are now buying in the Western Cape and ask them why they're buying there.
I think that Cyril's apparently got a stunning home somewhere there.
Not only Cyril.
Huck, drop on my files, Baba.
No. Well,
I'm kidding.
It's just it's private property, so I'm not going to go into that space. You have an improved. We are the first province to then take, and the first administration to take SADU to court, to then say we want to introduce this issue of having 210 days, no failure of school teaching, no political interference into the schooling system, and actually then introducing the issue of ensuring that the kids are actually, and there is inspection that is taking place at different grades. Because we understood that you take out the politics out of the schooling system, you are able to then provide a quality of education to your learners.
Sure.
We are the first to then say we need to then also have an infrastructure master plan that is also looking at disaster when it strikes, right? Amongst other things that you're able to then introduce. We were the first to then say, look, because we don't have power to control the police, dear President, can you then bring us the military so that we're able to then do a proper cleanup? And we didn't get that. And this is why, from a provincial perspective, we ended up writing to, actually even it started from a city perspective when they started with the warden, something that Panyaza was trying to do, to get approval from Minister Lamola from a justice perspective, from the police perspective, to then say, look, let's get boots on the ground. It might not have the full authority as the South African Police Service does, but then it's at least able to then do certain things. They're able to then effect arrest. They're able to then do searches and all of that.
Are you saying Panyaza stole your idea?
But then go and look at when the wardens were started in the Western
No, I'm just
Cape.
asking.
I'm telling you.
Hey, come on.
It has been there before.
Sure.
And we got it right. Yeah, and I just realized before the elections. Hey,
This
I
one,
need to
I'm a
do something.
Panyaza.
I'm a panya, whatever they are called.
Come on, this one.
And then introduce them without even following the law, without even then making sure that they are able to then have some kind of authority. In Cape Town, we have the Metro Police. The minister said, no, you can use the law that is giving power to the Metro Police to then start training these guys and then make sure that even the training, not to only train, but to also give them certain powers using that specific law. Here there was nothing. They just got one MK veteran and then got them to Varambat and Valmansdal started training these people. Then they came. And then once they came, they realized that there was a problem. They couldn't go out. They couldn't search anybody. They couldn't arrest anybody. They couldn't do anything unless there's a policeman next to them. That's why you started having them in police stations, doing admin work for police stations and doing PA work for police stations. And then the provincial commissioners and different kept and started complaining to them, say what these guys are doing is illegal. You can't be a commissioner of oath if you haven't been sworn in. So that's why, it became a problem. And he then made an announcement during the State of the Province address and say these people are employed on a permanent basis, only to come last week in a question and answer session to say he never said it. And I'm sure you can find both clips.
Okay.
We don't have really the full on, we don't have it perfectly where we govern. I'll be the first to admit that.
Sure.
We don't have it perfectly. And South Africa cannot have it perfectly until our neighbors' issues are sorted out, as an example.
Sure.
So the Western Cape will not be able to then have everything running as it should unless other provinces are working. And this is why we now need to make sure that, government is actually then, out of this guy's hands at a national level, so that all these different provinces can also now begin to then fix themselves, so that we can get a South Africa that is working for all.
I won't harbor on more on the Western Cape. I just needed to ask the question so that it is asked.
Yeah.
Would you be able to count your biggest wins and losses when you were the mayor of Tshwane under that coalition, and your thoughts on coalitions? I remember the EFF at the time, they actually really liked you.
Yeah.
They were like, no, solely out. And that type of rhetoric, unfortunately, wasn't good for Ntate Herman Mashaba, because in Joburg, he was accused of getting along very well with the EFF and accused of being an EFF puppet. You never had to deal with that?
No. I've never, because I've always believed that, as much as I'll be able to then consult everybody, including the ANC, the EFF, all of them,
Sure.
whether we're in coalition or in opposition, I believe that we were able to talk about the challenges and be frank about it. That's why none of my budgets were voted against. None of them. All the budgets that I put through
Sure.
had full blessing.
You got buy-in even from other parties?
Everybody.
Sure.
You asked me what were our greatest successes. We got into a government that had a 2 billion rand deficit when I got in. By the time I left, there was over 280 million surplus.
In deficit surplus?
In surplus.
That's brilliant.
And we were able to stop some of the contracts. By the way, now the ANC starts jumping up and down and say, hey, Tshwane has got 12 billion rand irregular expenditure.
There's a gentleman who's always fighting you guys in Tshwane. Khwezi, yeah. He lives to fight the DA in Tshwane.
He's a clever guy, because what he does is he doesn't tell you where that 12 billion comes from. When I got in, there were companies that were paid millions of rands and billions. One of them was a company that was paid 5 million rand a day for smart meters. 5 million rand a day for smart meters that were not so smart.
You must have hooked me up with that company. I want to be friends with them.
We had a company that they had sold the fleet of the municipality, and we were renting fleet from a company that we were paying 2-3 times what we would normally pay if we were buying.
Is it Rushabang? There was a story as well. No, not him.
Yes.
There was a story of someone who was leasing out buildings. I don't even know if Pegikele was involved.
Yes.
Leasing out buildings at exorbitant prices. It was a similar deal to that.
So we had vehicles that were sold, vehicles that belonged to the city that were sold or that were deliberately not maintained. So you had waste removal trucks that were not serviced. I mean, you had a truck that was sitting there. Its only sin was that it had a cracked windscreen or a expired license that could take literally 30 minutes to sort out, a windscreen that could be sorted out in no time. But these things were kept deliberately out of commission so that we're able to then bring in, contractors who were charging the city 2-3 times, what it would normally cost. We were able to then clean it. In the first year, we were able to then start seeing, starting to close some of these things. And the Auditor General only comes years later after the court has made a ruling to then say these contracts were irregular. And the Auditor General says, because now the court has declared, now it will come in the books of the city as irregular expenditure. Khwezi Mayepa jumps up and down and says, yeah, you see, the DA took over and already, they are spending 12 billion irregularly. But I urge you, guys in the media, guys who are readers and people who analyze, go look at where this thing comes from.
Yeah, most people still to this day. And I think maybe the the onus is on you guys in government and in politics to change the wording. I think the wording needs to change. The term irregular expenditure to a normal person sounds like corruption.
Yeah.
So I think a new term needs to come up to explain that it's irregular because there was an expectation.
Yeah.
This is a deviation, but there is a reason.
There are reasons, but remember, there's terms. There's irregular, there's wasteful expenditure.
There is wasteful.
And fruitless and wasteful expenditure as well. But, again, to an audit.
The wording needs to change.
To an everyday somebody that, might be confusing.
Yeah.
But you were asking about what we were able to then do. So these are some of the things that we were able to then do, to then start dealing with the issues of, of the finances. The other thing that we were able to then do is to then start, stabilizing the hiring of critical vacancies or positions, because we wanted to attract the best, to be able to then start doing, the work that needed to be done. Yes, we didn't get it 100% in terms of, some of the initial positions that we wanted.
There was a scandal, I remember, of some people hired.
But again,
of course, Khwezi would jump in there, boy.
He will jump in there. But you see, the thing is, even the Systems Act, the Public Services Act,
not says, the PFMA.
No, not finance. But I'm talking about how you hire people.
Okay,
you have to, and people don't know this. You have two offices. So you have the private office, or you have the political office of the mayor, and you have the department of the mayor, or i.e., the head of government, which is run by the city manager. In the department or in the office of the mayor, there was a lady by the name of Marita Okamp, which was the chief of staff in the office of the mayor.
Sure.
There was Stefan de Villiers in the office of the mayor, who was then the coordinator. Now, you can, the Systems Act, you can hire about anybody that you want, because these are people that are political advisors to you.
Okay.
Right? And then it's not somebody who says, make strategic decisions in terms of how we provide electricity to people. It's political advice, or people in the political office.
Okay.
They jumped in onto this to then say, no, we hired this person, we hired a bodybuilder, you hired this person. But what they don't tell people is, where were these people working?
But is that not cadre deployment though?
No, but this is what I'm saying. It's a political office.
So it's a form of, because if it's in the mayor, it's a form of cadre deployment.
No, it is, because it's a political office. Okay. These are somebody who is.
What's the political office? The mayor's
office is a political office. You have a political office, and you also have. That's why I'm saying there's two offices. Okay. Like even at the provincial level, you have the department of the premier, and you have the office of the premier.
Because the question would be, were their salaries coming from tax money or from the DA's
No, you still
pockets?
do that. Even the ANC offices.
Comes from taxpayers.
Yes,
money.
Even the ANC's office. No, listen to what I'm saying.
No, I'm listening exactly to what you're saying.
Even you are given support staff as political officers.
Sure.
So you are a mayor, or you are a leader of the official opposition. Sure. You will have resources that are allocated to you. You'll have a budget that gets to be sent your way, and you have to account for that to the Auditor General as well for that.
Sure.
So that is what you have. And then you can then do what you want in that political office in terms of who you hire and what their responsibility are in terms of advising you what needs to be done politically. They don't interfere, or they don't get to run the work of the departments. Now,
I've got so many issues with that, but I'm listening to your story. Please carry on, sir. My apologies.
So
because the fact that you're saying you guys did it and the ANC did it, it's fine.
No.
It's above board.
And it's not only about that.
Sure. The question
what the system says.
No, I hear you.
Okay.
I've got no issues with everything you're saying.
Okay.
Again, normal person, taxpayer, and how these things look from the outside to the rest of us is. It's taxpayers' money, and this is not knocking the DA or you. It's just knocking the system you're speaking about, which probably needs to be checked. Taxpayers' money. You're saying these people don't have influence on strategic decisions, which, Jacob Zuma could say that about the Guptas as well. The separation of the two offices sounds like wasteful expenditure. And then the issue of cadre deployment in some or other regard.
Okay.
Which becomes an issue. And this is not an attack on you.
Yeah.
It is me just highlighting thoughts that are coming up in my head. You don't have to address
them. No, I want to address it so that you understand why these things are separated.
Sure.
As a mayor or as a premier, I cannot sit and make decisions on who gets what tender, or I shouldn't be.
You shouldn't be.
I shouldn't be,
yeah.
right? And I'm saying I shouldn't be because we know where certain things happen, right? So you shouldn't be sitting in a situation where tenders are being discussed. You shouldn't be discussing who should be employed under a certain level. So
Yes.
you sit where you are making an appointment of your head of department, as an example.
Yes.
Your head of department will then take it further down,
Sure.
right? You should then be coming in and saying, here's my manifesto. And this is why we're fighting cadre deployment. Because you are saying, here's my manifesto to people who are going to be the implementers, the people who are then controlling where tenders are going, the people who are controlling, where we get to put a street light, how it should work and all of that. You say, I want street lights in this area. I want night visibility for this area. Please go and make it happen. My role will be then to come back and say, I've given you an instruction according to what the people are saying. Can you then account? That's me playing an oversight.
Sure.
My office, that the political office, are the people who are saying, looking at what we are told, Mr. Mayor, you need to go out there and then look at whether these things are done or not. You need to go and have public engagements. This is why you also have mayors in Bizos and all of that, right?
Sorry.
So you're able to then go out and then make sure that all these things are then implemented. That's what they do. So that's where the separation is. Now, if you had all in one, it means that I will then be able to then sit where tenders are being adjudicated. I will then decide who gets to then get a tender. I will be able to then decide how a school is built. I cannot decide on that. I need to then say, I need a school, and a school needs to then be of a good quality and needs to host or needs to be able to accommodate so many children.
Sure.
Mr. X, make sure that happens. That's why you need to then have the separation of the two.
I hope, this is my personal opinion as one voter, I hope that system changes. Because to ordinary people, it seems like somewhat of a conflict. I personally don't mind you having to report back to the Democratic Alliance because they're the ones that helped put you in office. And to say, look, the manifesto and what we're trying to do is being implemented.
Yeah.
As a one voter and as a taxpayer, I don't like the idea of tax money going to a political office. I'm hoping, it's not me asking you to do it, I'm hoping that system changes. I don't like it. And even in everything you explained, I'm not sold that it's a good model, personally.
Right. Can I tell you what happens even at a national level?
Sure.
All the political parties that are represented in parliament have what we call political offices and constituency offices. Your constituency offices, you being able to be taken closer to the people. So, for instance, I have people that are members of parliament, but they go to parliament in Cape Town, but they need to be in their constituencies. So they need to have offices across the length and breadth of the country to be able to then deal with these issues. Now, but those are political. Those are political offices. That's how the money gets to then be going. But also, it's not just money that you get and you can just do anything that you want with it.
Yeah.
It is supposed to then also assist in you connecting and being able to then take mandate from the voters and saying to these guys that once you are elected and once you are in office, this is what now I need to see you doing. We were fighting the issue of cadre deployment for a number of reasons. One is that you want to make sure that Penuel can work into and say, I've won elections. Here's my manifesto. Mr. Director General, this is what I want to see because this is what I've promised to the people.
Sure.
So Msimanga, after Penuel, must be able to then walk into whoever is this the Director General without changing. We might come from different political offices, but that administration should be the same thing.
Sure.
But you need to then separate, and this is what the system says. The system says that you cannot have your political your political principles playing a role in the decisions, the procurement systems, and all of that. Now, this is where the separation is. Yeah. And it's not as if you're having billions and billions going into the political office. No, it is just there so that you're able to then continue to do your oversight. You are able to then go to the ground and say, this is what I want to then do. Get the mandate from the people, go to the administrators and say, now you are sitting with money to implement. I've gone, I've had, This is what I'm being told.
Sure.
This is what I'm expecting you to do. So that's where the separation is. And then you're able to then come back and say, now it's time for me to play an oversight role. I've said to DG, I want school here, this, that, and that, and that, and that. Now I'm calling you to come and account in terms of what you have done. Remember, I cannot interfere with what you're doing. But if the communities are still saying, we don't feel the impact of what is being implemented, I need to then come to this guy and say, I've heard, this is what the people are saying. This is what you said you were going to do. Am I able to then hold you to account? And this is where you're going to need to have the separation. Because I can't be a player and a referee at the same time. I can't say to somebody, implement, and then be the influential person in terms of how then the implementation gets to be done. Because then I will influence, tenders. I will influence, how people get up, end up having this position, and so on and so forth. It becomes messier.
Maybe other people in the comments will hear you better. I still stand by. I hope this thing changes. Some of the losses, a lot of people complain about the DA in Tshwane. I mean, we've still got issues of water in places like Hammanskraal. Sadly, I hear people complain about the DA not managing water infrastructure, of which even in my head, I'm like, I don't know if they fully responsible or if it's someone else, because it can't just be since the DA came in. But they're like, look, at some point they were there. They didn't do much. So I don't know if you have any losses. You're like, look, these are some of the things where we fell short. I mean, it's one of the reasons you'd say, please bring us back into power, because we started this work and we never got to finish it. Are there any losses or issues where you're like, this is where we fell short? Or we've heard these stories and unfortunately, these are actually not ours. You might put them under us, but they belong to someone else. Well,
let me start off with where I think we fall short. And I think this was also a learning curve. Has been, the sustainability of, or the strongness of the coalition. Because I think, we had a turbulent time, with the changing of the mayors. And I think this is something that we will own up. Not only as a DA, but I think all that were part of the coalition must then own up to that, to then say, at least now we're working in terms of how we can make coalitions work better going forward.
We were still new, we were babies.
Yes.
We made a lot of mistakes. We're learning.
That I think we can own up to. The issue of Royval. So the issue of Royval is something that the first report was done, and Royval also talks to the Hammanskraal water, by the way. The first time that the report came up was 2009. To say you are heading for a disaster there. We were not even in government. There was a study done by UNISA. There was a study done by the Pretoria University around there. And the fact that you also have a plant, a water treatment plant that was 65 years old, that needed to have been upgraded. You can think about what Pretoria looked like 65 years when this thing was designed, and what it looks like, and then where we are currently, and you realize that there's never been a plan in terms of, adjusting or even, building a bigger capacity for
bigger capacity.
Now, that is what has led now to the kind of water that has flown to down Temba to Hammanskraal, is that you needed to deal with Royval and make sure that you're able to then build capacity. For Royval to be able to treat the amount of water that was flowing there, so that the amount of water or the quality of water that is flowing down towards Temba is actually then with a good quality. So in 2015, 2016, when we were campaigning, it was something that I campaigned very strongly on. The first year I was in office, we went out and sent out what do you call it? We sent out an expression of interest to then say, we want to see who are people who are willing to then come in on this. There was expressions of interest that we received, good responses there. I think there was 4 or 5 companies that came up. We wrote to National Treasury and said, look, we don't have the kind of money to be able to roll this thing out, because we were looking at a turnkey where we're not only fixing Royval, but we're fixing the stream, we're fixing Temba water treatment plant, we're instilling and refixing all the pipes that are going up to a house in Hammanskraal. Companies came and says, we can do this and we'll do a turnkey for you. We wrote to National Treasury. National Treasury said, go ahead. Provincial Treasury says, go ahead. Guess where this thing was stopped? Ndlovu, who was then the minister responsible for water. Why? Because there was no companies that were comrade companies that were part of it, number one. Number two, you didn't have a situation where once this thing is fixed, that the ANC was still going to enjoy the support that they were enjoying in Hammanskraal, because we were coming to do what they'd failed to do for a number of years. Lastly,
so it's almost a form of sabotage as well. We're not going to make the day look good.
No, I'll tell you what happened.
Yeah.
So after they said, no, we couldn't do it, we said, okay, now let's go to Temba, where the water is coming in. We started then increasing the tankers that were there. There's something called oxygenation that takes place where you put water through a process and then there's oxygen that is pumped into there to clarify the water, the quality and all of that, and to pump it out. We fixed all of that, the chlorine tanks and all of that. We fixed all of that. And then we put some computers that were able to then be used to then monitor, what water, the quality of the water, what is flowing out and all of that. And guess what? When we were testing the water, 2 weeks before we were supposed to then open it up, that infrastructure was demolished, was damaged to the last bit. And then when we started engaging, we were told, no, some of it could be because of the water tanker companies that were working in the area, because now it means that you're going to have water that is coming out of taps, then the water tankers are no longer needed in there. There was also another thought that...
that's a tender as well.
Yes, those were tenders that were there.
The water tankers that are supplying clean water where there isn't clean water. Now that you're coming to fix the water?
Now that we're fixing the water,
they won't be needed.
Yes. And this infrastructure has now been damaged to a point where, you had the tankers destroyed, you had the monitoring systems then being destroyed, and then we were back to square one.
Sorry, before you carry on, I hope I'm not interrupting.
Yeah.
This is one of the things I wanted to raise with fixing the trains to Maputo, or wherever the case may be, that there are too many politicians and friends making a lot of money from trucks, even though it's inefficient, that are on the roads, damaging roads, but they're making money. So they don't have an incentive to allow our railway system to be fixed again. So you've got this clash, maybe even with Eskom. The people that are supplying diesel for generators, they lose money if Eskom gets fixed, along with so many other people.
But then that's when you need intelligence.
Sure.
If we had enough time, we could go into the SAPS and into the South African Police Service and into the intelligence deeper, and you would see the kind of problems that we're sitting with. You need intelligence and you need to be able to then act, but you also need your National Prosecuting Authority to have much more teeth to be able to then deal with these issues a whole lot quicker and much more effectively, so that you are able to then start looking at what the problem is, how do we then deal with the problem, and who are the problems and who are the syndicates, around the problem. South Africa doesn't have a single copper mine, but we are one of the biggest exporters of copper. Where do you think that copper comes from? It's coming from all the scrapyards, from these people who are sending people out to go and dig municipal infrastructure and then yank out all the cables from the ground. But you need to then have intelligence that is able to then say, how does the network work? And then how do we then ensure that we're able to then deal with that? So you putting in infrastructure is, a solution. But for you to sustain that, you now need to then say, how do we then bring in safety and security? And how do we bring in an element of intelligence that is able to then deal with these things?
I remember Andre Terreita speaking about this, the ex-CEO of Eskom, about needing security around certain not power plants. Was it substations? I'm not sure. Which were also being sabotaged. Okay, scary stuff. Sorry. So you're still saying that you guys were sabotaged. You were speaking about any failures and shortcomings, etc. And you were saying the water tank guys, or that's what they said, that it might be these guys. But at the same time, the Minister of is it Minister of Water?
Yeah, Minister of Water at the time.
Water Affairs?
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called.
That was
Mama Action.
Said no, you can't. And I even went there with at the time Premier Makura. I even went with Premier Makura there. And I said, let's go and explain to the people of Hammanskraal.
What happened?
And I went and told the people of Hammanskraal, I said, I came here.
Yeah.
I told you that I'm going to fix the problem. I was committed to fixing the problem. Yeah. I can show you letters. I can show you how we went out. I can show you the responses that we got. And we were stopped. So For political expediency, some people...
I don't know whether to bring up my conspiracy now. Sorry, for political expediency.
Yeah, for political expediency, people will be told, no, the DA doesn't care about you because you're black people.
Yeah, obvious. Yeah.
But reality is that, I went and campaigned on an issue. I was willing to fix that issue. We went out. There's paper trail to show what we've done.
You fixed the issue.
We were fixing the issue, and we went and fixed the issue.
You did.
And what happened? It was sabotaged. And after that, you had even certain areas where, and I have photos to show you. I can show you. I can send them to you. You can put it on your podcast. We had bags of cement thrown into the sewer lines. Now you can imagine cement in a bag plus water. What does that do? It becomes a rock. How that will then mean that for a week or so, or a couple of days, you now have to stop the flow of affluent, because now you have to then break this thing. You have to then rebuild this thing so that you can have flow again. I can show you how blankets, big pieces, a chunk of wood trees were chunked, and strategically, not just anywhere, they were put where they know that it will create the biggest blockage. When you're having the small pipes coming into the mains, that's when you will get these things being done. So it was not done by any Tom, Dick, and Harry. How would you know that if I dig here, but here, specifically here, this is where cable is?
I wanted to ask, you said you need intelligence from the NPA.
No.
I'm thinking it's the same NPA that Steinhoff gave 40 million rand to say, you guys don't have money to come investigate us, so we'll give you money to come investigate us.
But the way that it's structured, first of all, it's wrong. You can't have people that are reporting to the minister dealing with these kind of things that we're talking about.
I hear you.
You need an independent body that only reports to Parliament. That only reports to Parliament, that gets to be appointed by Parliament, if you like, not to be beholden to a political party or political affiliation of some kind. Parliament needs to then say, we want an independent body, and these people must enjoy,
call
it the protection of Parliament as a whole. What did the Scorpions used to do? They were able to crack and be able to then do a lot. They were watered down into what became of the Hawks. And then the Hawks were also now beholden, because now they need to report to the South African police commissioner and to the minister. Now, how do you deal with that? How do you then build intelligence that is able to be independent, and the same people who also have to now go and ask the minister for a budget?
Thank you for trying, and on behalf of the people of Hammanskraal and all the surrounding areas, I hope whoever comes into power in Tshwane, whether it's you guys or anyone else or whatever coalition, outside of all the noise and the fighting and the money and the mafias, please just consider the people there, man. It's try and find other ways to be criminals, because clearly you don't want to stop.
There shouldn't be criminals in government.
No, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, the people of Hammanskraal have been suffering for a while with that water, and I hope whoever's going to be listening, because some of them are maybe the people that were involved in the sabotage,
Can I tell you, the history of the Hammanskraal thing, Penuel, it is coming back from the apartheid days, by the way. There used to be a joke, which is a sad thing, that you could tell that somebody's come from Hammanskraal with the brown teeth. That used to be the situation, right? So that comes from that. But I'm glad that now sanity has prevailed. The national ministers come around the table with the mayor. There is now an agreement, and actually now there is a program and a project that has been rolled out that hopefully will see the issue of the Hammanskraal water resolved once and for all. And I wouldn't want to then say it's this political party, that political party. We are now saying, let's put the citizens of this area first.
Sure.
Lest we find ourselves with an outbreak of cholera again and more people dying, which is going to be a problem. But I promise you, the problem that you're seeing in Hammanskraal, unfortunately, is going to then also manifest itself somewhere else. In the Vaal, Go to Sidibe and go to Mfuleni and look at the amount of sewer that it gets to be pumped into the Vaal River system. And this is why I've said to you, we need to then deal with the infrastructure master plan and deal with these things. Lest we find ourselves again in the situation where we don't have clean drinking water, but we have water.
I stood up at Cliff Central.
Yeah.
Gareth Cliff was hosting Justice Malala. He was launching his book. And one of the questions I asked, which I think made some people uncomfortable in the audience, and I didn't get a straight answer because I think people uncomfortable, was, if you look at the destruction of our railway systems, if you look at the destruction of our harbors, if you look at the destruction of Eskom and our ability to generate electricity, if you look at what's happening with our water systems, and if you look at our lack of borders, anywhere else in the world, if you were to hear of something like that, the assumption would be that it's terrorists. That this is a terror attack on your country. And my question was...
we have a terrorist in government.
My question was this. This is why they couldn't answer properly and people uncomfortable. My question was, if all of us are going to agree that all of this destruction is because of the ANC government, would that not, very ironically, because that's what the apartheid government called them, would that not make them a terrorist organization? And if we agree that it does, how do you deal with a terrorist organization coming to destroy your power, your water, your harbors, maybe sell off your planes? So people don't have water, they don't have power, they can't use railway, etc., etc. I'm not asking you the question. I'm just letting you know that I've asked this before, because at some point it stops being a joke.
Yeah.
When people start dying, when we don't have water, when we don't have electricity, when we don't have jobs, maybe it's not just sabotage of water here for water tanks. Maybe it's not just Eskom mafias. Maybe it's not just the Philippines taking over a harbor. Maybe it's a really big calculated plan to be like, we will terrorize South Africa and make sure that we have people that are going to destroy it because we are terrorists and we have an agenda that we're trying to serve that is bigger than people actually think it is. And they'll only wake up much later.
Yeah.
And we thought it was just these sporadic things happening. How can it be electricity and water and the harbors and the borders? It can't be.
Safety and security.
It can't be.
You have a flow of illegal cigarettes here that are running into the billions. You're having us bringing in doctors into South Africa while we spend millions, hundreds of millions going to take our own doctors to be trained somewhere only for them to return and not be able to then find work.
That's true. I think that's Cuba. We bring in Cuban doctors we even send South African kids to Cuba, but then they come back and they're unemployed.
What we fail to do is to always follow the money. What do I mean? Whenever there is a disaster, somebody's benefiting in South Africa. It's correct. It's a norm.
That's ruthless capitalism, boy.
Yeah. Whenever, and sometimes these things are done deliberately. I'll give you a small example. Buildings were burned in Johannesburg. Unfortunately, people died. People didn't die. The Bank of Lisbon. What did the insurance say about it? Was money paid? Where did that money go? What happened to the information that was inside? Was anybody investigated? Was anybody arrested? Is anybody being held to account for that? One. You have a government building. Remember that building that 47 people died? Recently 47 people died.
A couple of weeks ago, maybe.
That was a government building, government-owned building. Insurance is going to be paid for that. Where's money going to go? Who's benefiting from all these things that are happening? You can look at the infrastructure that is falling apart. The fact that you now don't even have artisans that are able to then, give you cablers, as they call them, or joints, to be able to then deal with pipes that are broken, that we have to then be importing these things. And you have people that we are now paying per street light to fix our infrastructure. When street lights are out of commission, in certain areas, they're paying somebody up to 2,000 rand to fix per
street light.
Yes.
Yeah, I need to go into tenders. I'm sleeping.
No. But I am saying to you, this is why I'm saying we need to rebuild the intelligence. We need to rebuild also the capacity for government to be able to do certain things within government. And not continue with the system as it has been built to rely on tenders. because then it to somebody who then says every time who gets paid to go replace a meter. What do you think they are thinking or they doing when there's no meter that is leaking or there's no meter that is broken?
Come on, that's obvious. Even the street lights. I mean, I'd always be there sending my boys to go and smash the street lights.
There you go.
So they can call me back.
But then that's why I'm saying, that's why I'm talking about the issue of intelligence. But also it goes further to then say, how do we then build capacity inside of government? There are certain things you can tender out for, because these are things that are not your everyday.
Sure, highly specialized, very unique.
But there are certain things that should be actually in-housed.
Buying toilet paper.
Yeah, you use
from
toilet
the
paper
shops
every day. You use toilet paper every day. And go and ask how much they pay versus how much you will pay going to a shop to go buy toilet paper. Go how much they pay to go and buy bulbs through a middleman.
And unfortunately, Fort Hair now, Fort Hair scandals.
And unfortunately, Penuel, is that the ANC government has we've built a fake economy of middlemen. We haven't built producers.
That is correct.
What we have done,
that is 100% correct,
is that somebody who's a Lapana picks up a document, a tender document, is not going to produce. It's going to look at that. And what is very sad is that the same people will then go to China and go and look at a product in China because it's cheaper than a product that is coming from Roslyn.
Sure.
And then add up a markup, which is 2-3 times what the product actually cost, and then becomes a price that then they submit to you. I met with a producer of beds. You know, these beds, in hostels or in prisons or in clinics, in hospitals, those beds. There's a producer in Pretoria who makes those beds. Guess who's his biggest client? Rwanda, Kenya, Namibia.
It's not even us.
No, it's South Africa, but he's producing in South Africa. Those things in the gym that you see, the what do you call the lockers that you see in the gym, they produce those. SAPS approved. We're not even buying from him.
From that person.
He says that the people who are actually buying beds for hospitals, clinics, and all of that are importing these things in containers, and we're talking about growing the economy. Again, we are not looking at people that are producers that are able to then produce and say, how do we then grow this economy? We are saying, how do we then get a few people rich who are connected? And
fake middlemen is what you call them.
Middlemen, that's what we have been doing.
Oh, we've built a fake economy of middlemen.
Yeah, that's what we have been doing. And that's where we also now need to then say, when we reimagine what South Africa looks like, we need to then say, how do we rebuild that? How do we then ensure that if I want a glass, I don't have to import a glass? Who has the capacity to make a glass? Am I able to then go to this person and say, I need a glass? How much will I be able to then spend in getting a glass from this person than having to then spend money from this one to this one to that one before I get to that one? How much would I have spent before I get to that person?
And all the bribes and kickbacks involved.
There you go. That's why we now need to then rethink and rebuild the systems that are in place. I always say there's always good people and there are always bad people. But what we need to then say is then you can separate the good people from the bad people by introducing good systems. You don't fight with people, you introduce systems that are able to then deal with your rotten apples and then be able to then award those that are doing good. If you're able to then do that, those that came in just because they are able to then just make a quick buck will not last, because the system will just root them out. B is that you are able to then spend money to where it will have the greatest impact, and you're able to then get the greatest bang for your buck. But also you'll be able to then save so much that you'll be able to then do much more than what you currently are doing. And that's how government should actually be operating. Imagine you running a business. As a business, CEO, you are told, no, we're having so much in terms of your operations, but we're expecting this at the end of the day. You are going to do everything that is possible to make sure that you maximize your output, with the inputs that you have. But in government, it doesn't work that way. As long as there's so much money that is given to a department, the head of department will then say, oh, This is what I'm having. Let me just go on a spending spree. And Panyaza will tell you if he's honest. For the last 5 years, on every single debate, I've said, but what is the impact of what we are spending on the people on the ground? You're coming in, year out and say, we're spending money, we're spending money, we're spending money, we're spending money. What is the impact? Are we spending money to enrich a few individuals along the way and then hoping that at the end of the day, something somewhere, some small thing gets to then impact the people? Or should we then be saying, how do we maximize the impact of what we are delivering by ensuring that, you cut the cost where you need to then cut costs, but not the quality, but you cut unnecessary cost, and then you're able to then have the biggest delivery at the end of the day. Come the 27th of April, I'm sure they're going to be bragging about the houses they've built, this, that they've done, that they've done. But you should ask yourself a question. At what cost?
27 April, 29 May?
Now, when they will be talking about, the 30 years of freedom, because I can tell you that's what they will do. Oh, we built you 1 million hours. At what cost? And had we not had corruption, wouldn't we have built 3-4 times what we have built already?
Let me ask you 2 more questions so that we can get out of here. As I thought this was going to be a short interview. Then we'll talk about you seeing Tony Leon and writing a letter and why you left the ANC and if your uncle thinks you're a sellout and how your family sees you at home. But look, siyahamba. I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to start it off with a compliment.
Yeah.
And then after this question, I want to put my conspiracy theory on the table and hear your thoughts. One of the things we will have to appreciate from the Democratic Alliance is how many leaders they have given a platform for us to be exposed to. Black people can complain all they want about the DA and call you guys racist and you're a white supremacist party and you work for the US, whatever black people will say, which I'm sure you read on social media. But if you look at the names that I'm going to read out now, I can't think of another political party that would have given these people, including yourself, a platform. And you can judge it however you want, but it's something special. And I have to commend the DA. I don't know if Ukoko Helen Zilla is the only person and other people involved, but shout out to them. That's the compliment.
Yeah.
So Lindiwe Mazibuko left. She was the first. Then Mmusi Maimane left. He's now leading BOSA, Build One South Africa. Then Herman Mashaba left. He's running Action SA. Then Bongani Baloyi left. He's running Sheluba. Phumzile van Dam has left as well, the DA. You speak fondly about listening to Tony Leon and seeing gaps. Look, the people won't understand you. I think I can add value. And you're here today. What are your thoughts on all the black people that have left the Democratic Alliance? Some of them almost alluding to a
racial
undertones of, not really inclusive for an African man. And the idea that even Tony Leon has gone on to call Mmusi Maimane a failed experiment, which is quite in bad taste upon reflection.
Yeah.
What do you think of this? And do you ever worry about yourself being an experiment of sorts to garner black votes at Atteridgeville, Mamelodi, Mabopane, Hammanskraal on behalf of the DA? And once they're done with you, you'll start feeling the heat. And a year or 2 from now, I'll be sitting with you when you've started the Pretoria or the Tshwane political party. I'm like, put solely, but we were here last year, Baba.
No. I think I'll say this for the first time on a media platform. Sure. I think after the DA, if I ever should I leave the DA for whatever reason, that will be it for me in politics. And I don't take that very lightly. I have always enjoyed a very close relationship with the people, almost all of them that you've mentioned. And I've known most of them personally. Different stories why they left. Some good, some bad. And, what you find is that sometimes what people say in the media is not the real reasons why they leave. And, sometimes as the DA, we've taken a decision that, we're not going to then go on a ping pong on on why people leave. Like in any organization, you'll find differing opinions, and that goes across. And you argue your point. I'm sitting here. I came here with one of the youngest person who's going to be a member of parliament, 23 years old.
Oh snap! Shout out to Liam. Have to mention his name. Shout out to Liam.
You know, he's going to be the.
He also didn't bring us KFC. Just please put a note there.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
But the point I'm making is that opportunities will be made, whether you're black, white, Indian, or colored in the DA. You apply yourself, opportunities will be made. He's not only the youngest person to go to parliament, but he's also one of the youngest people to sit on a federal leadership structure. He will tell you of the arguments that we have there. He will tell you of how robust we will take each other on, and we will then disagree and agree on certain points. And even when we disagree, sometimes we find the middle ground. Where I find it very interesting is that people who have sat on some of these platforms, even before I did, never raised any of the things that when they leave, when they are on the outside, start raising and say, but the party is this. But you've been in the party for 20 years. And all of a sudden the party is racist. When you're offered something else somewhere else, when you lose a race against an internal, candidate, or, internally when you lose a race, when there is when there's a disciplinary action that is instituted against you for some of the things that you did, and then all of a sudden the party is racist. When you are about to face a motion of no confidence in you as a leader of a particular caucus, you then leave and say the party is racist. So I don't want to mention names because, I don't want to look like, I'm going after certain people. I don't. That is not what I want to do.
And the last thing we'd want is for you, specifically as a black
to
person,
then start saying this one left because of
to
this.
go and fight other black leaders almost with Ongam at the back. That's not a platform I'd want to push.
That's not what I do.
Sure.
And I've always said, look, when people leave, I mean, political parties are all voluntary organizations at the end of the day. People come in and people go voluntarily most of the time.
They're supposed to. I know Dr. Paul Palatse, ex-mayor of Johannesburg, I think has gone back into practice.
No, but she's still a member of the
Sure,
DA,
she's still a member of the DA. Boy Mama Bolo, I think, in the ANC are like, I can't leave parliament, Baba. I need this salary. So we don't know how much voluntarily leaving or staying.
No, but what I'm saying is that people will come and go for different reasons.
Correct.
And at some point you find that I am facing internal contestation, or I would have dug my own grave. I mean, there's somebody who will advise and say, "Ndota, you are digging your own grave. You cannot ask your predecessor to come and assess what you're doing as a leader. What you end up doing is that this person is going to judge you based on what they wanted to achieve, not what you want to then achieve. And then when the report comes saying exactly what we want you of, then you then say, hey, Nina Bantaba Mnyama, come and beg me. While we were telling you from the get-go to say, you are a leader, you were carving your own way, stand by what you were doing. That's where the problem is. But I say that, I respect, there are certain people that have left and really had broken my heart when they left, because I could see that, there were certain things that they were raising, not necessarily even racial issues, but how they were treated as a person, because of the caucus that they were operating in, or the support that they were expecting from certain colleagues and they were not getting it. And then they end up saying, I can't do this. And then they left. And there are people who had left because they wanted certain things, and because you didn't want them, you didn't get them as a person, and then you go out there. But when you go out making noise. There are certain people who were promised positions somewhere else, and then they go bad-mouthing the party on their way out to their next platform. So, there's all sorts of, dynamics and reasons why people do what they're doing. And it will always happen that way in unfortunately in an organization like the DA, unlike what you would have in the EFF, where people are being called placeholders, and then Julius can let go of MPs, can let go of of councillors, and I'm not making that as a standard. I mean that Msimanga he will kick me once now that I've forgotten his name. But anyway, Ubaba Msimanga, left the ANC, wrote a scathing letter when leaving the ANC about how it has moved away from what he believed in. And so did a number of people. But when it comes to the DA having members leaving it, it then becomes a big issue. Athol Trollip left the DA. Michael Shackleton left the DA. These are what, ex-members who were leaving. That never really made the news.
Sorry, Mavuso Msimanga.
Mavuso Msimanga. Hey, ngiyaxolisa baba, if you are going to watch this, it's going to...
No, we've corrected it. We've corrected it.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, that people leave, black, white, Indian,
we've seen the ANC. People are setting up new parties even now.
People leave, people, and some of them leave and then they come back. We've had people who have left and went and joined the PA and then came back and said, hey, we were promised heaven and earth on the other side. People actually said, no, I was in a bad financial situation. I was offered something. I walked across. Because I was promised that I was going to be sorted out financially. I'm sure you would have listened to even, the video recording of the man in the green talking about he can make money available.
Was there a video? I heard an audio.
There's an
audio. This was Gayton McKenna. I think he was speaking in Afrikaans, offering something in the audio.
And that has happened. And we have people that have come back and said, look, I'm sorry. I'm willing even to start from the ground upward, because we were sold dreams of things that we were told this is going to happen, that is going to happen, but that isn't happening. But I guess it's a nature of politics.
Sure.
People come in, people go into this organization. It's unfortunate that sometimes when people leave by tinting the name of the party.
Sure.
But as I said, for me, the day I believe that the DA, or I feel that the DA has moved away from what I believe in and allowing me the space to debate and allow me the space to then say, I'm not happy about this and that and this and that and that, is the day that I'm done with politics. Because it's the day I feel that my contribution and a platform that I thought I could use to bring change to South Africa is no longer the platform that will represent me. That's when I'll leave.
Small question.
Yeah.
I'm hoping the answer will be short as well. Why do you think all these guys that have left that I mentioned cannot work together? It's an unfair question. But I apologize.
You want a short answer. No, some of them I know personally, as I said to you. Some of them are very close friends or had been close friends.
It's an unfair question. But if you'd like to answer, sorry.
You would have different personalities coming into play. You would have egos. Come into play. I remember one of the friends thought that he could leave and that he will draw so many people on his way out. And that didn't happen. And there was another one who thought that, would be able to leave and go and contest the DA and grab, a big chunk of the support. That didn't happen.
Sure.
Because, you need to understand one thing, and this will happen, and I think the big parties are enjoying this to a degree. Is a party is what the structures are. It's not what the individual is.
Correct.
Right? So good or bad, it's what the structures that you have in place and how you nurture those structures that will continue to support, the organization.
The most powerful thing you said today, I'm sorry, I didn't emphasize it at the time. It doesn't matter what great intentions you have. Doesn't matter what amazing speaker you are. A good person will always be mauled and overwhelmed and destroyed and dominated by a system.
Yeah.
A strong system. Whether it is good or bad, it doesn't matter.
You see, the moment you get elected, then go to kudla thina manje. So it means we're not correcting this.
Yeah.
We want the same 10 as those that have passed, or those that we are now kicking out.
Yeah.
So it means that we're not cleaning and we're not fixing the system.
Yeah.
It means we are now rechanneling the system to favor us. And this is what happens when you don't have a sober reflection of where you are and what systems you put in place to then correct it. I mean, the ANC goes and puts up a list, and people who have been kicked out of the system for some time, and when they introduced the step aside and people were investigated and people left parliament and all of that are now coming back. What does that tell you? So it's not an issue about cleaning the system. It's who's in charge of the system to be able to then, protect those that they want to then protect. And also, it's an issue about who will bring me the constituency internally when I am in trouble. That shouldn't be the case. It should be, will the principles that we stand on be able to then, sustain me going forward? Not whether you are able to, get protection. Somebody was saying, "Roto protect the mutona kadibono." Roto protect the mutona kadibono, and then when the person is gone, now protect the ona kadibono.
Yeah.
So it's who is not. It's not who is principally dealing with what needs to be done.
Yeah.
It's who then gets to protect me in the wrong that I'm doing or in the wrong that I want to do. Again, introduce good system. It will clean out the bad apples and then make sure that you have the good people in there.
Before I give my conspiracy theory, I should have raised this much earlier. When people mention your name, there's an infamous clip of you bleeding from the mouth.
Yeah.
If you can just give a quick summary for people that may not know, how did you end up bleeding from the mouth? What had happened there?
So I get a call. There's a problem that is happening in a warehouse in Brakpan.
Okay.
So I go there.
What is your position at the time? Sorry.
No, I was still the leader. I was still in the legislature. I was a member of the legislature.
Okay.
And also the leader of the DA. So I go there and I said, look, let's call the cops and deal with this thing. I try to lock the door. I get punched in the mouth.
At a warehouse?
Yeah. And then I said, okay, I'm not going to fight. And if you listen to the whole clip, there's a time where where somebody says, no, yeah, you're going to pay me. If nobody's going to pay me, you're going to pay me. I said, okay, let me call the cops. So that you can then say to the cops what you're saying to me on this clip. And, this is something I could have physically fought.
Yeah.
Physically, I could have. But then
you're also not a small guy.
No, but again, you need to then also remember, as a public figure or as a public representative, you will be judged very differently than every other day person, right? Correct. So you retaliate. The next day, the newspapers are saying Usoli has done 1, 2, 3.
Moose,
and also
warehouse guy in Brakpan.
Also, you are going to end up with a situation where the politicians from your opposition will also try to milk this. By the way, another politician from another party says, hey, you did well by not fighting, because had you done that, we would have been the very next day to then say you must be arrested.
Did you ever open a case against
there was a case that was opened, and I still following up on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
So my conspiracy theory, I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible. Africa is the breadbasket of the world.
Yeah.
We have got all the minerals that run the world.
Yeah.
And for some commercial farms globally, they farm here. People may not know that, but they farm a lot of their produce here.
Yeah.
They own pieces of land across the African continent, and then they export to their home countries.
Yeah.
Of course, the minerals, as I said, tourism, a lot of our tourist destinations are almost contained by foreign companies that run some of our most beautiful parts. We've got tourists, people are bringing dollars, euros, pounds, yen, whatever, but you find that those companies are owned by foreign entities.
Yeah.
All these people that milk the African continent in various ways need Africa to be as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
And it is not in their interest. We have speak about sabotage and people's interests. It's not in their interest for Africa to have one currency, for the African economy to be united. It is not in their interests to... Sir.
Sorry to interrupt. Liam has something about time.
Yeah, no. Can we do
this?
Can we do this in 2 minutes? And then we'll leave it, 10 past.
Should we cut out the conspiracy and just close off? Because it will run 2 minutes is not going to work.
I'll give an answer to where you're going.
Nope.
How long do you want?
So you answered, and then I was about to start my conspiracy theory. So I'll just close off.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to have time.
Okay.
I think in the interest of time, what we normally do with guests, but this is going to be provincial. I'd like you to speak to the camera on behalf of yourself, campaigning as Premier of Gauteng under the
Yes.
DA, and also on behalf of the DA from a national perspective,
Yeah.
speaking to the people of South Africa why they should be voting for you as premier candidate and why they should vote for the DA nationally.
Well, thank you very much, Penuel. And to the people of South Africa, more specifically the people of Gauteng, it is high time that we turn things around. That dream of 1994, where you stood in lines and made sure that you were voting for that dream of a better South Africa, where you will be, living a better life, where there will be employment, where you will be safe, where your kids will be able to then go to school. There will be health facilities, police that are patrolling, streets that are clean, an environment that is conducive, to live in. We can live that dream again. We are the only party that has a genuine plan that has actually been costed, that is actually then, being tested against, other governments, especially where we are in government, and we want to then bring that. We're not running a perfect government where we're in government, but we are trying everything that we can to make sure that we are able to then turn the nightmare that we have come to live right now in the couple of years into a true, beautiful dream that we were dreaming of in 1994, and we can make it in 2024. It is up to you to come out in your numbers to vote. Staying away is not the solution. Come out and vote and make sure that you vote for the Democratic Alliance. We can work together to make the dream of 1994 a reality in 2024. Thank you.
That is Soli Msimanga. Thank you so much for joining us on the panel show. I'm wishing you and your party nothing but the best. I think this year's elections are going to be very interesting all around. And outside of the results, I hope that you guys as well are quite excited about where we are, where we're going, and what's going to happen. Thank you for joining us.
Now, thank you very much, Penuel. The people will decide what the future and the direction that South Africa is going to take will be. And we'll leave it to them. But we'll do what we need to do to nudge people along.
Thank you.
Thank you.